we're doing that because we don't want to throw away product. Even if we are, and even if other distributors are selling direct to customers, have set up a will call cash and carry type situation to sell to the public, or selling directly to supermarkets, we still find it advantageous to have frozen product on hand and not a lot of fresh, because frozen lasts longer. All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is the Foodservice Distribution Podcast. I'm your host, David Layton. Today's the 3rd of April, 2020, and it's Friday. Thank goodness it is Friday. It has been a hell of a week, and I know anybody listening to this who is in the restaurant, hospitality, or distribution industry is feeling the exact same thing. Distributors all over the country, myself included, have pulled all of their teams down to part-time. We are packing about 80 hours of work into 30 hours or 20 hours or whatever is available. We're feeling it, and we are just doing our best to support you, the restaurant owner, the chef, the manager, whoever you are, whoever's listening. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for the support, and we are going to get through this 100%. We'll be stronger on the other side. We just need to figure out how to get through this all. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things today going on in the news, specifically that affects the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. That, of course, is a part of the CARES Act, the $2.2 trillion stimulus plan or program that Congress passed through and signed last Friday. I'm going to talk about that briefly. We're going to touch on some issues that we're seeing on social media and Twitter that small businesses are trying to apply, and they're having challenges. And then third is something that we're seeing that will probably carry over into the next few months, maybe even until the fall, and that is distributors not carrying a lot of fresh product. So we'll step into the first one here. Just looking at my screen for the first time, looks like we're still in quarantine, and we are not getting haircuts. We're shaving our faces. That's great. Hope everybody else is doing the same thing. If you are not out as one of the essential employees, essential people, hope you're staying at home. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're growing that hair out. Love you all. Let's dive into it. All right. So, starting at the top, the CARES Act, all right, I already kind of touched on this. The CARES Act was a $2.2 trillion bipartisan, I say it like that, bipartisan, because there was a lot of pushback on this bill, and it eventually got passed, I think 96-0 unopposed, zero opposed to it. So when you see something like that happen, if Congress throws a bill through, usually there's some strange stuff in it. We're probably going to figure out over the next few months, maybe next few years, where all of that money was allocated, where it went. But one thing that I am certain of, you almost never, I actually couldn't find another example of a bill that was passed through with zero opposed, which usually means that everyone on both sides got some program or organization that they're affiliated with benefited from this thing. So we'll see. That's my opinion on it. We'll see how it actually pans out, but that is going to be interesting watching as all of this unfolds. Just the political aspect of all this has been fascinating. Unlike anything that myself or anybody else listening or watching has seen in their lifetime, I guarantee it. All right, so how this affects the restaurant industry? Well, currently there are 15.5 roughly million people in the United States that are in the restaurant industry. All right. That is about 4.5% of the population. We have seen a lot of layoffs, obviously layoffs towards restaurants that have closed. Anybody that's affiliated with restaurants or hospitality hotels that has closed, these people have been laid off. And a part of this Paycheck Protection Program is to try and get people to remain on payroll, remain employed, or for businesses to hire them back. All right, so we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second here. Unemployment claims across the country last week were just over 3.3 million. The expectation at the beginning of this week was that those unemployment claims would reach 4.5 4.5 million or 5.5 million. I think Morgan Stanley made a prediction that it would be over 5 million. What we're seeing, reports are showing that it's actually closer to 6 million, over 6 million by now, and that number is going to continue going up. It just has to. The stay-at-home order was extended through the end of May in some places, to the end of May, where we think that it might even get extended through the end of May in some places as well. So I think it's going to happen everywhere in the country. There's a reason why Dallas announced it today. Washington is where I am, is still, I think, end of April. They haven't extended anything into May yet. But it's coming. It's definitely coming. And everybody will, I hope I'm wrong about this, but I think everybody will be in their homes in this quarantine type situation until June minimum. All right. So what that has to do with the unemployment and the amount of people that work for the restaurant industry and this bill that passed, what that has to do with you and why you're listening to this or watching this. The portion of the CARES Act that directly impacts you is called the Paycheck Protection Program. And what that is, I think the number ended up around $350 billion. I have $300 billion in my notes here that I wrote yesterday, but I saw something today. It's a little bit higher. It's loans to small businesses. Small businesses are categorized as organizations that are 500 employees or less per site. So if you're a chain restaurant or a catering company or somebody that has 1,000 employees across the board, if you have less than 500 per physical location, you would classify as a small business. So what goes into that? Let me switch gears over here, and I'm looking at the SBA.gov. So the SBA is the Small Business Administration of the United States. Their website here has a little bit more on, and I'll put all of this in the show notes, a little bit more on what the program is. So the Paycheck Protection Program, say that 20 times fast, is a loan designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on the payroll. SBA will forgive loans if all employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks and the money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, and utilities. Let me break that down a little bit further. So payroll would be salaries, bonuses, even tips for restaurant workers that primarily are earning a living off of tips, or somebody who is commissioned, earns the bulk, not off of salary, but commissions and bonuses. That can be applied to all three of those categories. When it says mortgages, it's not the principal of a mortgage. So if you own your building, it's not the actual principal payment, it's the interest on the mortgage. Rent, utilities, employee health care, so insurance premiums, and interest on any debt obligation before the covered period. So if you were to finance something before February 15th, that's when the period started, the interest on those payments would be covered by this loan. If you were to go out and finance something now, that wouldn't apply because it has to be something that was before or something that you purchased prior to the covered period. All right, so the covered period, while we're on that, started on the 15th of February and goes through the end of June, so June 30th. And that's kind of where we're seeing this whole program was built out as a February 15th to June 30th. And now we're having governors come out and say, it's stay at home till April, it's stay at home till May. I think we're going to see a little bit of June too. But they didn't want to scare people and overwhelm everyone with this, stay inside for 90 days, 120 days right off the bat. That would have been that would have been terrible. People would have panicked. So I get it. All right. Here is a little bit more about the program. So this is what came out last Friday and what people have been talking about all week as these loans, as people are doing their paperwork and getting ready to file with their bank, that any FDIC insured bank, and there's about 5,200 of them in the country, any FDIC insured bank, you should be able to put this loan through with, and there would be no issues, no problems at all. So before I jump into problems that people have run into today, let me jump back over to this sba.gov website and we can go through a couple more details. So who can apply? Who can apply to this? The program is for any small business with less than 500 employees, including sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and self-employed persons. So that's really important to know too. If you're self-employed, you're not excluded from this. Let's see. I can skip through that, skip through this. Bitcoin. All right. How to apply? You can apply through any existing SBA 7A lender, or through any federally insured deposit institution. So any FDIC bank, whoever you got your loans for when you started your business. If you did get loans when you started your business or your restaurant, that's who you should go to. Other regulators, loan details, and forgiveness. All right, so this is the key part that I should read off of this, and then we'll just talk through some other stuff. Loan details and forgiveness. The loan will be fully forgiven if the funds are used for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rent, utilities, due to likely high subscription, at least... Okay, so I should have read that a little bit differently. Due to likely high subscription, at least 75% of the forgiven amount must have been used for payroll. Okay? Loan payments will also be deferred for 6 months. No collateral or personal guarantees are required. So that's a key piece here too. No guarantees, personal guarantees, or collateral. Neither the government nor lenders will charge small businesses any fees. Okay, so forgiveness is based on the employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees and maintaining salary levels. Forgiveness will be reduced if full-time headcount declines or if salaries and wages decrease. So the threshold there is you need to have at least 75% of your employees on payroll, and the pay needs to be 75% or higher, or total compensation. So that is and this is where there has been some conflicting information out there on Twitter and on social media, and from people saying that they were interpreting some of this differently. From what I've gathered, looking through the taxfoundation.org website, at the Federal Coronavirus Relief Bill CARES Act section of the taxfoundation.org website, the number is 75%. So you needed to have at least 75%, people getting paid out 75%, and then 75% of your employees on payroll. If this conflicts with any information that you are seeing, let me know, and I will make an addendum. So that is the overview. That's the overview of the bill, of the CARES Act. That's the overview of what the Paycheck Protection Program is, who can apply, how to apply. And I'm also going to add a link in the show notes of the video and of the podcast where you can follow it through to the details here from the Tax Foundation and then from the SBA.gov website, that you can follow some links and get some ideas on where to apply. But if you've already worked with a bank, go back to your normal bank. And here is why. So this morning, this is the day after our Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Steven Mnuchin, told everybody that by tomorrow, so by today, Friday, the 3rd of April, small businesses will be able to apply for these loans at the bank, and that the SBA bill, that the PPP is going to be good to go, and everybody can file and start getting their money. So here is a few reactions from banks initially. I'm looking at something here from Capital One. Capital One is awaiting updated guidelines and application forms from the Small Business Administration, SBA, and the Treasury Department, and thus we cannot begin accepting applications for Paycheck Protection Program loans at this time. Obviously, that's a huge problem. So that's just one bank, though. Let's see what else is going on. Qualifications through Bank of America. Here's where it gets sticky and where people are starting to get a little bit upset. To apply for a Paycheck Protection Program loan through Bank of America, you must have an existing small business relationship with the following. And then it goes to list, you must have already had a loan with Bank of America in order to file this. Of course, that is conflicting with the information that we're being told in these daily press conferences from the White House. So who knows if that's going to get sorted out or if banks are going to hold their ground on this. So that's just two examples. Can't be more than that, right? Wrong. The Small Business Administration, SBA, is currently developing regulations and guidelines for this program. When received, Citi and other lenders will be able to originate these loans and help clients with specific questions. So Citi and potentially other lenders, other banks are having some problems here. So that's at least 3 that have been named. Presumably it's all of them. So it sounds like this was agreed to and confidence was pushed behind it earlier than banks actually agreed to it. And we're able to figure out the details to get these loans flowing. So I don't know if this is accurate, but I have yet to see any confirmation of a small business accept these loans or get the paperwork processed. But today there was quite a bit of, social media outrage on Twitter, people saying that, hey, I tried to file and it didn't work. So I am going to dive in a little bit deeper this weekend and see if I can find some examples of applications that were processed and follow up and say, hey, this is the bank. Maybe it's Chase, maybe it's Wells Fargo. I doubt it's Wells Fargo. Maybe there's somebody out there who's doing this effectively and quickly. So if I can find that, I will absolutely let everybody know. That's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about with the CARES Act. If anyone has questions on resources or on anything that I'm describing here, please reach out to me, leave a comment, or direct message me on Twitter or anywhere that I am. I'd be happy to research something additional if there's something unique to your restaurant or to your business, and you are just slammed busy this weekend, you don't have time to research. Let me know, and I'd love to look it up. I'd love to take a stab at it. All right, so that is that, and the last piece that I wanted to touch on here. I saw an interesting article today about, I don't even really need to reference the article. I'm just going to talk through this. So being a distributor, right now we have we have a lot of challenges, but we have one main challenge with inventory, and that is navigating how much fresh produce we should be bringing in for some of our restaurants, chains and single restaurants that are doing takeout and delivery, that are reporting 45 to 50% lower sales than normal. We had one chain that actually just brought on DoorDash, and their sales went up about 10% overnight. So we're on the fly adjusting all of that produce. That's always been a challenge, whether or not there's a crisis or a pandemic situation going on. So produce is always tricky. But now we're getting into the position where we are sitting on excess beef, chicken, fresh proteins. And so you add the complexity of a quickly perishable program or just-in-time type program like produce. You add proteins to that, and it starts to get a little more complicated. I saw today 2 distributors have come out publicly. One was Sysco, based in Houston. Sysco, if you don't know Sysco, I'd be shocked. Largest broadline distributor in the world. And they have decided that they're eliminating fresh proteins. So what does this mean? It means that there is a lot of uncertainty over customer demand for fresh product. And as a distributor, you want to hold on to product that is not going to expire in uncertain times. That's going to be frozen proteins, frozen products. So we've seen on a smaller scale something just like this, where we are not only trying to manage the volume of fresh proteins a little bit closer, but we are freezing everything that we can and holding on to it in the freezer. We're doing that because we don't want to throw away product. Even if we are, and even if other distributors are selling direct to customers, have set up a will call cash and carry type situation to sell to the public, or selling directly to supermarkets, we still find it advantageous to have frozen product on hand and not a lot of fresh, because frozen lasts longer. So what this is doing, outside of completely blowing out freezer space all over the country, if we're taking everything, putting it in the freezer, and then we have our normal frozen products, we are completely running out of capacity. Everybody is right now. So not only is that causing a temporary concern for excess frozen product, but it is also, if you look a month to 90 days to 6 months down the road, it is completely throwing a wrench in and disrupting the production of fresh proteins. Chicken and beef are two, just to name two of the most heavily impacted by this, to where manufacturers are going to start switching to frozen product, because if that's where the demand is, that's where they go. So why I say 90 days, 6 months down the road, why this is a concern, because as soon as we get the go-ahead, the just American population who's been in quarantine, as soon as we get the go-ahead to go back out into the world and go back to work and go live our lives, we are going to start dining out. We're going to go to restaurants. We're going to still do the drive-through and the takeout, I'm sure. But everybody wants to flip that switch and go back to normal, back to business as usual. And they forget that there is a 4-week, 6-week, 8-week supply chain that needs to catch up to the demand. So I know that a lot of big manufacturers and protein processors are going to try and get ahead of this, but here's my message. If you're a restaurant, make sure that you are talking to your distributor and letting them know when you're planning on opening, right? So we're all going to try and flip the switch at the same time, but make sure that you are planting that seed. And if we get a May 1st, can go back and open the doors, or a June 1st or July 1st, whatever it is, just at least understand that you might want to think about opening with a limited menu. You might want to think about opening with some frozen product, because there's going to be a surplus of it. And you might want to think about talking with your distributor and figuring out what they need to get rid of and what they have plenty of and what they are going to have the hardest time getting, right? So manufacturers are going to need to flip the switch from producing something to be sold and stored, shipped, frozen, to going back to fresh. Distributors are going to need to anticipate when the restaurants need the fresh proteins and try to beat that time period or that opening date by 2 to 3 weeks, so they have enough time to get product in. So already that's putting us several weeks out. General public is going to wake up whatever day that is and say, all right, well, it's Friday, we're back, we're out of quarantine, and I'm going out to my favorite hamburger place to get a fresh burger tonight. Just be thinking about it. It's going to cause a temporary lapse going back from fresh to frozen. So as long as you're thinking about it and you have a plan, you have a backup plan, potentially doing a shortened menu, or potentially ordering up frozen product, making sure you have enough time for it to slack out and thaw, you should be fine. But that's something you need to be thinking about. I expect more distributors to jump in the same boat here, getting rid of fresh items and switching over to as much frozen and canned and longer shelf life product as possible. I know that that's going to happen over the next few weeks and few months, because this should be extended out at least until June. And those are just some things to think about. So that is what I had. That's it. I'm going to try to get outside. I've been sitting staring at this screen all day, but I wanted to get this out to be consistent. And if anybody wants to watch this or listen to it and fire off some questions for me this weekend, I would be happy to either jump in and let you know some things you might want to be thinking about as it relates to the CARES Act, or as it relates to the supply chain situations we have coming up. Or if, as always, if you're doing something creative to get through this, you want me to call it out on the show, and you want me to talk about your restaurant or your company and what you guys are doing to navigate this crisis, let me know. I love these stories, and I love hearing from you guys. I've gotten some pretty cool feedback. This is a brand new idea. I've been doing this since the week before we went into quarantine, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback through people that have reached out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. So I just appreciate that so much. And I really want to keep doing this, keep providing value to the restaurant industry and the distribution industry. I've got a customer calling right now, so I'm going to grab this. And I appreciate you guys very much. Stay safe, wash your hands, practice social distancing, do all that, and have a fantastic weekend. All right, take care. This is David.